Hi everyone, welcome to Mama Star X channel. Alright, so I want to talk about the frequencies, codes, and portals of the month of March. I know that I should have finished or done this direct or upload sooner, but things got a little complicated for me. I was able to post it in Spanish and I didn't get around to do it in English. So here I am. Never, better late than never, as we say. All right, so in the table, I have all the different symbology that represents the portals as well as the frequencies of the month. I know it looks like a lot, but if you think about it, we are always moving through a lot of different frequencies at once. But we don't notice it because we feel them. We don't always work with them. So looking at it from this perspective, it sounds like a lot and it looks like a lot, but when you compare it to the amount of frequencies that we're constantly working with moment to moment, this is nothing. So just bear with me. I'm going to do the best that I can to explain them in a way that makes sense, because March is representing a level of harmony that is really important right now in our own personal life as well as our reality. So if we're not clear about what this means from a broader perspective, we can create more tension and more resistance that we need to. And let's face it, there's a lot going on in our reality right now where it's very easy to either feel disempowered or feel numb, confused, disappointed, because there's so much going on. And we are in the middle of it. And here's where it gets a little bit tricky. We are here. And the main purpose of why we're here is to manipulate energy. But the type of frequencies that we manipulate are going to determine how good we feel or not. In other words, we get to choose. We are always choosing the type of frequencies that we're going to work with. The problem is that we don't always understand the importance of the power of choice that we have in this process. So a lot of times we are manipulated to work with a frequency that it doesn't feel good. But when we don't know any better and we don't understand our power of choice, we end up nurturing frequencies that are not going to feel good, that are not going to give us the fuel that we need in order to feel better, and we get trapped in those frequencies and we get trapped in those realities. And ultimately, that's why we feel very uncomfortable, we feel stuck, we feel stagnant, and we don't know how to get out. So I'm going to try to do the best that I can to explain. Hopefully I do justice to, actually explain the nature of these frequencies and what you can do so that you feel more in your power instead of disempowered. All right. So the method that I use is to use the repetitions of the number and determine the portals that we are going to be moving through, but as well as the astrological houses that are going to be most active during those times, or during, these portals. And then I'll try to tie everything together because, I already made a video where I talk about the year 2022, you know, what the codes of 2 is about, and when it's being repeated multiple times, you know, we're not just talking about 2 times, but 3 times and 4 times. Now we're talking about more sophisticated frequencies, that it's not just about being an angelical frequency, but it's also demonstrating the level of balance that you're creating, or the level of balance or connection that you're creating with source energy. And I think that's the most important thing, is that those repetitions of those numbers are only demonstrating the level of synchronicity that you're creating with the source of all knowing. So it's more than just being an angelical frequency. It's also describing the level of connection that you're creating. So one thing is doing it without really knowing what you're doing, and another thing is when you're more conscientious of what you're doing and then being able to do it again. So, all right, so we have 5 different portals. 2 are transitional, meaning that it ties one month to the next. And the other ones are 3 that, you know, pertains to March. So the first portal we are already transiting, and it began on the 22nd of February until March 3rd. And we see 9 days. So the one thing that we're going to see consistent about these portals is that each one is going to take 9 days. That is important, because 9 is repeating three times. I'm going to repeat it again. So number 9 is telling us that the number 3 is being repeated 3 times. And we already know that when a number is repeating 3 times, we're talking about a level of synchronicity that is making us closer to source energy, or connecting to source energy. In this particular case, because it's not one of the houses that is here out in the table, it's telling us that whatever is being completed, because we know that 9 represents completion in numerology. So it's telling us that something is being completed at a deeper level. In the way we're going to feel that completion may be different, because in the way that we're working with ourselves to go through this level of transformation that we're going through is different. But it's important that we know that there are things that are being completed in our lives. And specifically with these houses of Gemini representing 3 and representing the month of March, in Virgo representing 6, because these are the numbers that the codes are adding to, and are the numbers that are being coming out more consistently. I forget English sometimes when I'm doing these videos. Consistently, I think that's what I'm trying to say. And then 12. Okay, so when I did the math and looked at the numbers that are being repeated the most, apart from 3, is 6 and 12. 3 representing Gemini, 6 representing Virgo, and is also connected to the energy of, or the frequencies of the year, you know, 2, 2, and 2. And then 12 representing Pisces. In Tarot, 3 is represented by the Empress, 6 the Lovers, and 12 the Hangman. So back to the portals. So then we have the first portal of March, which begins from the 3rd of March until the 12th. And then we have another 9 days where there is another completion here taking place. And remember, 9 in numerology talks about completion, but in astrology is the house of Sagittarius, which happens to be a it's a house that is talking about transcending something, because it's the house that talks about our spiritual food. And remember, the way I'm describing these houses is from an energetic perspective. You know, if you want to hear more from a physical perspective, you go and listen to a video in astrology. But my aim is to help us connect to the energetic perspective and start incorporating that aspect so that we can, you know, understand better the kind of work that we're doing internally. Because one of the things that we need to do right now is work internally. And the changes that we need to make are inside ourselves, so that then we can see those changes outside ourselves. So for those of you, or for those of us that have created a habit to sit around and wait and see when something is going to change outside yourself, that's not really the best way to do things right now. Because a lot of what you're going to see is not going to feel good. And one of the ways that you give away your power is by doing that. So if you don't want to give your power away, and then do the best that you can to stop observing the things that make you feel bad. It makes you feel off. It makes you feel out of alignment. I'm not saying not to look at those things, but do it from a place of power, where you're in your power, not from a place where it's going to make you feel disempowered, which is very different. And here's, you know, this is the thing. If we don't understand how we work as energy beings, we're clueless. We really are. There is, when teachers, spiritual teachers, talk about know thyself, they knew exactly what they were talking about. So right now we're moving through one of those type of changes where if you don't start learning who you are as an energy being, you're missing out a lot, and it's going to be very normal. I don't know if it's normal is the word that I'm trying to say or want to say. It's going to be, oh, what am I trying to say here? It's going to be natural. Okay, so if you don't know yourself, it's going to be natural that whatever you're trying to do or whatever you're trying to achieve is going to be difficult. It's going to be harder, because you're out of alignment, you're out of sync. Your operating systems do not have the amount of energy they need to work efficiently. And the perception that you're going to have about your reality is going to be off. So when we are working with lower frequencies, we don't have enough fuel to keep our operating system working in harmony. And as a result, the way we perceive our reality is distorted. And when we are like that, we are, you know, and then we're in an emergency mode. So basically our body starts working out of an emergency mode, and we then are more in a protective mode than in a receiving mode. So we want to be in a receiving mode. We want to feel connected to the source of all knowing. When we are nurturing and harnessing low frequency energies, we get disconnected. So that's important to keep that in mind. All right, so from the 3rd until the 12th, we have another 9 days, and this is where we have the new moon. And you know, when we are moving from a new moon to a full moon, the forces that are helping. Sorry if you guys hear noise, but you know, there's a lot of noise outside, and I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I apologize. I just can't do anything about it. Anyways, so when we are working with the moon has the ability to help us reinforce the things that we want. And especially with this new moon that we're having in Pisces. So it's funny how, you know, I'm doing this thing where I'm just basing it on the repetitions of numbers, and it's very connected to astrology, and it's also connected to the events that are happening right now. So we have a new moon in Pisces and a full moon in Virgo. Pisces representing the unconscious, Virgo representing our actions. And I will explain, because as you can see in Tarot, we have the Lovers representing Virgo, the Hangman representing Pisces, and once again Gemini representing the Empress. So everything will come together by the time I'm done. All right, so we have the new moon from the 3rd until the 12th, and then we have a full moon, and I believe it's on the 18th of March. I didn't really check exactly the date, or maybe I did and I just didn't write it down. But anyways, you guys will know, and I will highly recommend. What did I do with that paper? I know I had written it down, but oh well. I think I got rid of it. Sometimes I like to take notes about a specific things because it really helps me. Let me see if I can find it. I think it was on the 17th and 18th of March. We also, depending on where we're at in the planet, we may experience 2 new moons in March, which is kind of rare, but again, it's important, because here's where, you know, it helps to know what is happening in the sky. You know, all of these celestial forces that we deal with, they're affecting us. And it's not that we don't have what it takes to manipulate those forces. It's just that we don't know how. So if we don't learn to understand who we are as magicians and the skills to make us superior magicians, and then you don't know how to work with the forces around you, you know what I mean? So it takes skills, but we have to learn those skills. And right now we have the opportunity to do that, because there's all the information that can help us achieve the understanding of how to know ourselves and how to become superior beings is available to us right now. But you need to work within. You need to work from within. All right, so next we have from March 12th until the 21st. And now we see another 9 days where another, you know, level gets completed, especially with the frequencies that I will give you. And that's the cycle of the full moon. And here's where I feel like there's going to be a shift where by then we may feel like, okay, now is the time where I'm more clear, I'm ready to take some actions. And you know, it all depends again, what is the kind of work, or what kind of work you're doing when it comes to shifting, changing, integrating, adjusting, because there's an adjustment that is taking place when I look at number 9. So recalibrations of our own systems, our own consciousness, the consciousness of the collective, and so on. And then we go into the 21st until the 30th. We have another 9 days where again we complete with whatever expansion and change is taking place between the Empress and the High Priestess, because remember, the High Priestess is the energy that is representing February. And because February is in alignment with the number 2, then February, I said in my last videos, that is very much connected to the frequencies of the year, because the year is repeating the 2 3 times. Okay, so now we see the connection here. And I said also that I totally believe that February was the month where we would have a taste of all the different frequencies that we had to move through and align ourselves to throughout the year. Because February basically, you know, it was a very charged month. And when we looked at the behavior of the astral bodies, we saw that Pluto, for example, went through a journey of 248 years around all the different zodiac signs and completed that journey on the 22nd. Okay, so, and it's interesting enough, right? When we look at the frequencies of 2, right? Excuse me, let me drink some water. Excuse me. Sometimes I get an itch on my throat when I'm doing these readings. It's very interesting. When I do tarot, my nose itches, and when I do numerology, my throat itches. I guess it's the nature of these energies clearing away my chakras, my throat chakra. All right, so 2, I said it was the energy of the High Priestess in Tarot, which represents our intuition. From an astrological perspective, it's the house of Taurus. And Taurus represents our capabilities, our abilities. So again, we're talking about our inner reality. The chakra that represents 2 is the sacral, which is the lower abdomen. That area contains our sexual organs, but it's also an area that we can use to preserve energy. So there are practices that we can do, like Qigong, Tai Chi, martial arts, that will allow us to work with that chakra in a more productive way. But again, these are lifestyles that we need to create. So when we take this frequency into the energy of the year, we see here with 20 Uranus and with 22 Pluto. From a tarot perspective, the judgment card. So we can see that these forces of Uranus with Pluto are going to help our intuition be upgraded. So in other words, our instincts are being upgraded this year when we see that repetition of the 2, 3 times. So there is going to be upgrades where every month, whatever portals we cross, the level of awareness in which we're going to be able to use our intuition is going to be quite amazing. Because here's where we have these abilities of telepathy, clairvoyance, psychic abilities, and we have been already working with them, but with this level of purification that took place with Pluto, where it ended back in February 22nd, is definitely creating a readjustment in our energy fields. So again, very important to be aware of what we're doing and how we're using our energy, our vital force. Because we may not, I mean, some people are not really aware of what's going on, but for those of us who are a little bit more aware, we can feel that there's a lot going on with energy. We can feel it, but we just don't know how to understand it. And in many cases, instead of relaxing, we're creating tension, and that tension is creating stress. And that stress is also being reinforced by all the negativity that is resurfacing in our reality. And if we don't know how to take control of our, energies and use our energy in a more useful way, and then we're giving our power away. So if we don't know how to control our own energy, we're giving our power away. That's just how it happens. And it's so easy to give our power away. Oh my goodness. Once you enter this path of self-discovery and you start understanding who you are as an energy being, you start realizing that it's so easy to give our power away. And the forces that have conditioned us to create the habits that we use, they know this. And they are the ones who, in some ways, have made it possible to reinforce belief systems where we continue to give our power away. And those are the beings that say, oh, I know better than you do what to do, because I know how you can make choices where you feel more protected. And you know they're lying. It's not true. So anyways, so we have Uranus, and Uranus is the awakener. It represents many of these frequencies that will come with the Aquarian era. We're talking about newness, you know, very different, high, sophisticated frequencies, which are different perspective of source energy. Pluto, on the other hand, is the transformative force. And it's saying, okay, so if you want to do something new and if you want to try something new, that's okay, but what are you going to let go? Because you cannot bring all of these negative energies, so it doesn't mean that you have to let go of everything. You keep what works and refine the process. What doesn't work, you need to let it go. I know it's difficult, but it's just how energy works. And you know, there you go again. When we start looking at all the habits that we've created in the way that we've been taught to be here in this reality, we start realizing that a lot of these habits are self-destructive. No wonder we have issues with our self-esteem. No wonder sometimes we feel so discouraged and disempowered, because we haven't been taught the proper way. Now we have the opportunity to change that, family. But you have to want it. You have to seek it. Nobody can force you to do something you don't want to do. And I know that's kind of ironic to hear that, because we're constantly being manipulated to do things that we don't want to do. But the truth of the matter is that nobody should force you to do anything you don't want to do. But if you want to succeed and you want to be a superior magician, and then you have to start doing what it takes to find the information that will free you and liberate you. And here's where your feelings come in. This is an operating system that tells you right away the type of frequencies that you're dealing with, the nature of those frequencies. It has nothing to do with your self-esteem. It has all to do with you thinking about something or finding information about something. And if it's something that is low in frequencies, your feelings will tell you right away. And all you really need to do is go and search for newer information that is going to feel better. It really is not about sitting around and feeling sorry for yourself or feeling discouraged or disempowered. It's just the way of telling you, hey, this is not good enough. Go and search for more. But the question is, how are you going to go in that search? Because you live in a reality that has magnetism. It's a magnetic field. So whatever you nurture within yourself, in the way that you do it, it creates a sound or creates sounds. It kind of creates like a symphony. And that symphony is what you relate or communicate to the universe. But it's an all-inclusive symphony. So if you have doubts mixed in with encouragement and motivation, all of that comes as one musical piece. And the universe, when it aligns you to what you want, it doesn't leave anything out. Because here's the thing, that which you reject or judge It's an aspect of all that is. It's an aspect of source energy. So source energy doesn't see it as separate. It sees it as part of itself. You are an aspect of all that is. So when you separate this from that, from the moment that you decide to identify it as good or bad, now you're creating a resistance. And when you nurture that resistance long term by feeding in more of the things of, or the whys as to why you don't like it, the universe sees it as, oh, you need more of that because you haven't been able to harmonize it. It doesn't see it as bad or apart from. It just sees it as, oh, look at all that energy. Let's match that. So think about the things that are happening in your life right now that you're resisting. And this is the other thing. This is the other thing, because it's filled with little things that make the bigger picture. It doesn't matter how little the resistance you're feeling, it's strong enough to create a situation where there's some level of resistance. So here's where, you get to see through your manifestations how much resistance you've used, how much resistance you've nurtured. So all the experiences that you're having outside yourself are mirroring what is happening within you. So if you are doubtful of how you blended information before, don't worry about it, because whatever the outcome in whatever things are manifesting in your life are representations of all the frequencies that you've used. So if you are right now feeling like, oh my God, everything is negative, well, that's because sentimentally and emotionally, the energy that you have going on inside of you, it's more focused on the negativity than the positivity. And I'm not saying here that negative things are not happening. What I'm saying here is that your reality is an expression, your physical reality is a mirror or an extension of your emotional one. And if you want to change because you're tired of seeing negative things, and then you need to start focusing on positive things. Emotionally focus on positive frequencies. And little by little, your outside reality would change. Because just like we see awful things that are coming out to the surface, there's a lot of positive new things that are happening in our planet. But the media is not showing it. And yes, it's really unfortunate, this war that is taking place right now between Russia and Ukraine. But once again, that is a perfect example of what happens when, one, we manipulate and we force our way in because we feel that the way we think is more valid than the way that other people think. So as awful as this is also the opportunity for us to see it, observe it, and start paying attention to our own personal resistance. Because we are part of a collective. And although we're here playing a game of being separate from each other, from a vibrational perspective, we're all connected to one another. And it doesn't matter how insignificant the choice that you make inside yourself, based on the intentions that you have, that those intentions are going to create an impact in the collective as well as in the planet that you live in, as well as the other systems that we are a part of. It's all connected. So that sort of, at least it does it for me. It makes me think a little bit harder when I want something. What are the feelings that I have? What are the emotions? Because emotions is the energy that I choose to manipulate. And my feelings is how I'm feeling about those emotions. You see what I mean? And if I'm feeling those thoughts in a way that it's making me doubtful, and then you know what? My priority in that moment should be about feeling better. And it doesn't matter how you feel better. This is where it gets, like simple. If to feel better, all you need to do is think about a moment where you feel happy and then do that. Because that's what it takes for your operating systems to operate efficiently. And then you can address the problem. So addressing the problems from a place of empowerment is very different from a place of disempowerment. Because every choice and decision that you're going to make from a place of disempowerment long term is not going to feel right. There is going to be some sort of regret, because in that moment you didn't have the level of clarity that you needed to make the right choice. It's a choice, and a choice is a choice, but a choice that feels right long term, not possible. So then we, have to start working through all of these things. So here's where Spirit says, okay, with Pluto we have regeneration, rejuvenation, as we are vibrating with all of these information or frequencies that are going to be better for us to feel more in our power and to also create manipulations that are going to be more powerful. So it's also about knowing how to control ourselves instead of controlling other people, and operate from a place of empowerment, being in our power. So now that we know, right, what is the objective of this year, and it's to activate the genetic codes that will allow us to work with our intuition, because Pluto also talks about intuition. So intuition, Uranus talks about rest. When we're dealing and when our body is changing the genetic codes to support some of these new frequencies, the polarity between the old with the new can create a level of exhaustion in our body. So if your body's asking you to rest, please do it. Pay attention, because it's kind of like having spiritual interventions or spiritual surgeries, if you want to see it that way. All right, so now we have a connection here where intuition connects to our divine feminine, which is the Empress, the divine feminine. And we know that the Empress represents our ability to master our desires with the definitions, and then the feelings, and then the actions. So basically what I just talked about. So understanding how we're doing that, not just by mentally understanding it, but applying it. Because that's what the Empress talks about. It's being able to apply it. The Empress represents Gemini, and as I said, Gemini here is talking about duality. So the polarities of things. Our ability to transcend those polarities is seen with the Lovers. Okay? So the chakra that represents the Empress is the solar plex. And we know that it's known as the city of jewels. And I think it's Chinese or the Taoist or inner alchemy. The city of jewels is known as the solar plex, because it's the area where you feel your instincts, is a protection energy center. And here's where, we see that the first 3 lowest energy centers or chakra, they use a lot of energy. And we haven't really been conditioned to harness energy. It's funny, we're funny beings, aren't we? We're so special, but we're so naive. Like, we maintain our house, we maintain our car, we maintain everything, but we haven't really been taught how to maintain ourselves and our body. And to think about maintaining our body at this level to some people is kind of like, what are you talking about? Are you out of your mind? Sometimes when I talk about these things, people just look at me like, you're so fucking weird. What are you talking about? Like, if the body should just go and go and go and go. I have talked about this for a while, you guys, because I've had my awakening back in 2009. But, I've always been a little bit too ahead of my time. And I'm not saying this out of pride. I'm coming from a place of humbleness. But I've always talked about things that people look at me like, are you fucking out of your mind? But when I've talked about needing to maintain the body in this particular way, people sometimes they tell me, well, I go to the doctor and I do, what is that test that you do where they give you something to drink and then they look at your intestines? I can't think of it right now. When you do it naturally and holistically, it's a colonic, but from a medical perspective, oh, I forget what it's called right now. Sorry. I know you guys are going to know what I'm talking about. But anyways, they're like, yeah, but I go and do that. So I check my intestines, and they think that that's good enough. They think that that's one of the ways of maintaining, the large intestines, because when they take that, substance that they have to take, you have the runs, and, you kind of clear the intestines to be able to do that test. And they think that that should be enough. I think it's funny anyways, but all right, so moving on. So solar plex is considered the city of jewels. That's where we have a lot of magic in that energy center because it relates to our gut instincts, right? So it's the operating system that help us know if we are moving through a frequency that is not right for us, if we're in danger. All right, so with this particular house in Gemini, the one thing that is being considered here is the cross-pollination. So it's how we are blending and mixing information that is very different in nature. One example of that right now is what's happening in the sky between Venus and Mars. Two energies or celestial forces that are very different in nature. And because they're so different, they create a tension, an energy tension. But that tension can be seen as something positive or something negative. It all depends. It all depends how you see things. Because you can say, well, Venus represents love, represents everything is going to be okay kind of thing. It represents beauty, right? Blah, blah, blah. But to me, it's the frequency of love. And love is a quality within source energy that allows us to unite everything. It doesn't matter how different they are, right? It's like the archetypes. You have the feminine and then you have the masculine. Very different characteristics, but love can unite those two energies and make them collaborate. So it's not about really losing your identity or losing your integrity or how you think or how you behave. It's more about how you learn to work together and collaborate with each other. So when you are working in harmony within yourself and you accept yourself and you love yourself, and then you learn to accept and love others just for who they are and what they are, not because for what they're not. You see what I mean? So whatever is happening between Russia and Ukraine, I mean, we can say that, well, they're just two different countries. Yes, and they are. But because they're not accepting and embracing those differences, the leaders have decided to come and push and pull and control and dominate. You see what I mean? And the one who is marching in and pushing forward is the one who feels most threatened, and is probably the one that feels most afraid, because they may feel like they're losing power, and that's why that tendency to march forward. So when you're in a situation that somebody's being very aggressive, the reason why that person is acting or behaving that way is because they feel very threatened and they're very afraid. So the tendency that we have is to force our way in. So perfect example, right? It doesn't make us feel good, but when you look at it from that perspective, you know, we can say that there's a lot of Russians within us because we've been taught to behave that way when things are not going our way. And once again, it's all connected to our self-esteem issue. You know, I want more power, more greed. So these are different degrees of the same problem. We may not see it that way, but trust me, once you go down that path, you start understanding it better. So we have an opportunity to then own and take responsibility for our own manipulations, because it really doesn't feel good when we're being manipulated, I should say. So if it doesn't feel good being manipulated, and then we need to stop manipulating other people. So part of our work right now in this time of change and evolution is we are ascending to higher frequencies that make us synchronize with source energy, where the numbers are being repeated 2, 3, and 4 times. It's about you removing all of these belief systems or programming that is making you feel unworthy, and replacing them for those that will help you regain the knowledge of your divinity and learn to collaborate with very different energies. See how everything comes together? So that's why Virgo is here, because to me Virgo represents the Virgin, which the Virgin represents, you know, a clean slate where, you know, we don't really have an it's not that we don't have experience, because we do, but it's about cleaning. It's about, how do I say this? It's about cleaning. It's about removing the weed and opening up the space, cleaning up the energy, and then taking action. So it's kind of like when you clean your house. I mean, you think about it. You want to do, it's a big difference between cleaning, having a deep clean or a deep cleanse or detoxification versus having a minor one. Very different. And the process may feel uncomfortable, but the outcome feels really good, because it opens the energy up and it allows us to see things with more clarity. So that's kind of what's happening here. The chakra that is being cleared away and upgraded here is the third eye. So that's the energy center that help us connect to our multidimensional nature. So it helps us gain access to, you know, being connected to other dimensions and gain information, or, you know, access information from that perspective. It's kind of a really weird sensation, being awake and seeing other dimensions at the same time. I had my first experiences a few years back, and holy moly, I mean, it's kind of like you have this movie going on between your eyebrows, and it's not that it's specifically there, but because, you know, your third eye, it's connected to your pineal gland, but you can see it like it's kind of like that third eye. The area is kind of between your eyebrows. And again, it's not a physical thing. It's more of a vibrational thing where you can start seeing other places and you're like, whoa. It's just like an expansion. You know, when you have, and this is going to happen more and more, where you can be distracted doing something, right? And all of a sudden you get to relax. Your body relaxes, your mind relaxes enough where now you have a moment of expansion and you see yourself out of your body, and then you see your body doing something, and at the same time seeing yourself out of the body. I mean, these are really weird experiences. But it happens when we are activating genetic codes that relates to our capabilities. And that's Taurus, our abilities. And the more abilities that we activate, the better cope we are to be able to create this level of harmony that is being represented by the lovers, which is also the same symbol as the Trinity, the triangle. And that point of the triangle connects to the third eye, our multidimensional aspect. Now, when we get to the hangman, I love this, because the hangman is basically representing our connection to the tree of knowledge. So when we hang ourselves and align ourselves to knowledge, we become illuminated. And this chakra, the 12th chakra, I believe that is a very transcendental energy center that we don't see, or we're not really used to working with, but I believe that we have one. So there's a lot of meaning behind all of this symbology. I mean, when you start researching for this symbology, you start realizing, holy shit, there's so much meaning connected to this symbology. But here's where, you know, Spirit starts talking about the frequencies and says, okay, so right now your divine feminine is going through an expansion and recalibration. Bringing your instincts and surrendering to your instincts, it will allow you to create the level of synchronicity and balance and harmony that you need to experience the qualities of the repetitions of numbers, you know, 3 and 4 times. So it's going to happen more and more. And here's where you're going to have your telepathy come in, and the level of intensities that you're going to feel with people that you're going to attract in your life. I mean, it's all there because of the love frequency. And here's where the portals come in and say, okay, so these are the 3 houses that are working on the surface, but the balance is going to take place in your 9th house, which is the house of spirituality. And here's where you see many people changing their spiritual food. That's just how I call the house of Sagittarius. This also talks about travel, the things that we're willing to do to change our spiritual food. There is a physical aspect and there is a vibrational aspect. I like to talk about the vibrational one. So it means that our operating systems are an archive of all kinds of information that pertains to your soul. Because it's such an intensive and broad system, it's so complex in nature that in order for you to find a particular information, sometimes it requires you to have a little bit of work. But you have everything you need within yourself. So the question is, what kind of spiritual food are you going to use to access the information within you that is going to help you achieve this level of ascension or expansion that you're going through? So right now you're going through an adjustment, and March is kind of the beginning of that adjustment, where I believe that, well, by the middle of March, the end of March, we're going to feel more at ease about making choices and making the change or the changes that we want to make in our lives. And this is general, depending on where you're at. If you feel like, what, now I have what it takes, or the motivation to change a job, I'm going to do it, I'm going to follow through. If it's relationship, I feel like relationship is really being emphasized this time of year. Relationships, the nature of our relationships, and beauty is another one because of the activities of Venus. But again, we have frequencies here that when I look at this first transitional portal, the codes are saying Mars, and we know that Mars is pretty active right now, and it's kind of the motivator, or the it's the motivator, because I feel like Mars represents the fuel pedal. It's what makes us going. But it's mixed in with the South Node, which represents our past. So a lot of people, I feel like they're connecting or attracting people from other incarnations or past lifetimes, which again, we need to remember that there's no such a thing as past. Everything is happening simultaneously. So, once we start moving away from time, we're going to notice that it's all about frequencies and how those frequencies create different timelines. So it's not like we're really changing our reality. It's more like we are changing ourselves. We are changing our frequencies to move from one reality to the next and align ourselves to the reality that really, or dimension, if you want to call it that way, that represents who we are in the present moment. To me, that makes more sense. And again, these codes, when you add them up, leads you back to the Lovers, being Virgo, the work that you do, and the connection that you make with your unconscious mind, which is also representing your imagination. And your imagination is a great tool that you can use to explore some of these new frequencies. But here's where Spirit says, be careful what you tell yourself. Because sometimes you can tell things, you can tell yourself things that you kind of go in denial. So learn from your past experiences and see what are the things that you told yourself that kind of put you in denial. At the same time, there are some of us, or some houses, that are really working with their karma. I'm one of those. My benefit in all of this, because right now we have the North Node, I think, is in Taurus, and the South Node is in Scorpio. So I notice quite a few people that are being presented or needing to deal with their karma. And we're not, again, just talking about what we've done in this incarnation, but we're talking about other incarnations as well as our ancestral lineage. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes you can have an epiphany that will allow you to understand your habits and repetitions, especially the unhealthy ones, understand them from a deeper perspective. Like there's kind of this inner knowing or inner understanding that tells you, oh my God, now I get why, this has happened to me so many times, and how you connect other experiences together with this one. So definitely a lot of epiphanies that we're having, which is expanding our consciousness internally. So, we see some of that, and then from the 3rd to the 12th, we have that new moon, and now, not only is emphasizing the South Node or the past, but communication. So communication is entering into this. Our subconscious and what, we get, but as well as the stories that we tell ourselves, the denial that we have within those stories. Then we have the 12th through the 21st, and we see this reversal in the numbers 1 and 2, which the astrological houses are Mars, which represents the self, and 2, Taurus, right? So ourselves, based on our capabilities, the genetic codes that are being activated within, our personality. And then here we have Venus comes in, love. You see what I mean? Love for the self. And because of this completion, it's like, things are being reinforced within our subconscious mind. You see what I mean? It's just amazing how the codes tell you what is happening. So reinforcing their love frequencies. I also, again, I feel like there's going to be an emphasis here in relationships, but relationships based on the connection, the spiritual connection. So look, if you want love, but your definitions are based on instability, probably some of the experience that you're going to have is this contradiction between what you consider love, right? This desire to have love versus to going after stability. So these are the things that you're going to have to come to terms with, the polarity between those, those things, the definitions that you use. All right, let's see. So yeah, higher truth, facing what's really important to you is an aspect of this. And then we have from the 21st till the 30th, we have higher truth together with the thoughts that we're having, the structures or the habits that we're creating, because Saturn comes in. And remember, Saturn is the one that helps us create the type of habits that we need in order to reinforce a new understanding. But Saturn is also the one that can sometimes make us forget, change. And when we are very physical focused and we become very rigid, that could also be an aspect of Saturn. So Saturn is karma as well. So all of this, I feel like, is being reinforced through these portals, but the main objective is to balance and harmonize all the work that you've been doing at the level that you have achieved it. And that's determined by you. How you see things, how you understand things, and how you understand your own power. So please be aware, be mindful. Remember to rest. Be patient with yourself. Moderation is important. Take it slow. Work within the selves. Pay attention to how you feel. We're going through a major healing, and the more you're in your power, the easier it's going to be for you to heal yourself, and the easier it's going to get over time for you to be more in your power and be willing to give it away in things that are not really going to help you. Because a lot of times, we're trying to be good Samaritans, and we end up trying to help people that is really not our responsibility to help. So if you are taking away your peace, trying to help somebody else, right now, that's not really the best option. It's more about you. And I'm not saying this from a selfish way. Not at all. It's more about harmonizing yourself and within, And from that place, being able to be of service to others. You know, there are times where I just, I do this work of, healing and helping other people. But if I'm in not a position to help anybody, I don't do it. If I am sick, I am not in a position to help anybody. So I have made some very stern rules about how I'm willing to be of service to others. Sometimes I see healers that have a beautiful energy, but they're sick and they still want to help and heal other people and be of service to other people. And the thing is that we don't know and we don't see how connecting to people that are in chaos or confused will add to our sickness. You know, I had this experience when I was in Brazil at an energy center or healing center. You know, I went there to receive a healing, and I really wasn't sick. It was more about my spiritual growth. But I went through a spiritual intervention, and, I'm not really going to get involved or get into the house or the place that I went to. But, this is a place that was set up so that we can receive spiritual interventions directly from energy. And I remember receiving one of those spiritual interventions, and I connected to a couple of people. One of them turned out later later became my husband. But the other person was this woman, and we had an instant connection, the three of us. But because our energy field was open, I got to one point where I got really sick. Now, we had to follow certain protocol where we needed to rest a lot. We shouldn't connect physically with each other. I mean, we could connect through words and, hang out and stuff like that. But, we couldn't, or we were not supposed to physically connect with one another, which I didn't. But just by hanging out with these people, I remember one day I got really sick. And I decided that day to remain in my room and just meditate. And the one thing that I saw was that I took a lot of these people's energy, because some of us who are healers have that quality. But if we are not healthy and then we get sick and we take all of that. I saw the same thing when I was doing plant medicine in the jungle. How easy it is to take upon somebody else's negativity if your energy field is compromised. So we need to pay attention. If we're not feeling good, the feeling alone should tell us that you're low in frequency. And if you're low in frequency, it's not a time to help anybody. It's not a time to see ugly things. It's a time to recharge yourself. So just keep that in mind. All right, guys. So I hope this helped. Thank you so much for being here. Hang in there. We'll get through this. I feel like things are going to get a little bit easier and better as we move on into April and May. Things will not go back to normal. For those people who are hoping for things to get back to normal, I'm sorry to say that. The new normal is not going to be like before. Even though we are no longer wearing masks and things in our reality seem somehow that it's going back to the normacy. We're not going back to normal. And the main thing to keep in mind this time is that there are many frequencies that we are feeling that are there to make us feel confused, weak, debilitated, and disempowered. So be careful, because if you, out of the blue, are feeling off, pay attention and do what it takes to change that, because there's a lot of different energies right now, or different frequencies that are purposely invading our environment to make us feel scared, afraid, and doubtful. So take it easy.